Good evening, folks, and welcome to the big episode 500. Who would have known I would have gotten to 500 starting in late October 2019? That I can tell you right now, farthest thing removed what I was thinking. My initial thought was, anybody go listen to me? So with that being said, Tom, the legend Tom Sotis, offered to interview me for episode 500, which I thought was very kind of him. So in lieu of that, hence is why you're seeing him here. If you haven't seen the questions, I thought he came out with some great ones. I think there's 30 plus. So we're going to get through them all. So hopefully you can stick around. If you do have questions, as usual, put them in the right-hand side. However, though, if they're not really in congruency what we're talking about, I will write them down and try to insert them when they're more relevant. I don't want to kind of break, ongoing conversation and with something that's really maybe not theme oriented. So just please try to keep that in mind. So without further ado, here we're going to kick it off. Again, Tom's got the questions, and if you're watching, tell us where you're watching from, smash that like button, and we're getting started.
Well, listen, Dean, I'd like to say right at the beginning, it's an incredible honor to be here today to interview Dean Franco. He has dedicated himself to enriching the Filipino martial arts community this is the 500th episode of the FMA Discussion Group. This milestone is a testament to the passion, hard work, and commitment that Dean's put into preserving and promoting FMA worldwide. His tireless efforts have created a platform for practitioners, instructors, and enthusiasts to share their knowledge and experience, ensuring the legacy of FMA continues to grow and thrive. I'm privileged to have the opportunity to speak with someone who's made such a significant impact on the community. So that's my hello statement. So thank you, Dean, for this opportunity.
Parallels your questions. So not surprised by the incredible intro.
Okay, well, we're going to jump right in on the questions then. So I'm going to start with number one. How did you first get introduced to Filipino martial arts?
So ironically, saw the first UFC. So my goal was, man, I want to do what they're doing. So went out. The only person that was doing Connecticut at that time, what we could kind of construe as the eclectics, was Ron Kozakowski. So I went down there with the goal seeking MMA or UFC. I don't know if it was even called MMA back then, and did a makeup class. I think it was either his Kuntao. I think it was his Kuntao. They were doing sticky knife, and I was done. I mean, I was sold, and from that point on, it's just been a continuous journey in it. But ironically, kind of found what I was really looking for through the lens of something else.
Right on. So then what inspired you to start the FMA Discussion Podcast?
So, it's funny. Dwight Woods, he runs the JKD and does an incredible job with the JKD podcast, as well as he's got a group that's affiliated with this podcast. And so he brought me on, Bert, and said, hey, look, you should get Dean on what he's done with the kids and all that. So he brought me on, and I was, just humbled and honored to bring me on. But what really resonated with me was that when I got off that night, when I was kind of reflecting on the interview, I'm like, wow, FMA doesn't have that. Like, we don't have somebody that's giving a voice or interviewing these FMA luminaries and just overall exposure. So I'm like, so I really started to get the interest in doing that. But I reached out to Dwight and I say, look, I want to do this, but I feel compelled out of respect to run this by you and there. And he said, good to go. So I launched the first one, which ironically was with you in the late October 2019. And but it was really, the inspiration came from the void. Like I really wanted to give back. Like I was so humble and honored that Dwight interviewed me because normally I would not get exposure or have a voice, right? I didn't have a huge name. I wasn't Black Belt Magazine. I mean, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted to give that opportunity to others who might have some really impactful, relevant, and stuff of substance to share, but maybe never got the opportunity or platform to do so. So I wanted to fill that void as far as FMA is concerned.
Well, you've done a great job of it. So I want to then ask you, what was your vision when you began interviewing FMA instructors?
Somewhat multi-dimensional. One, I didn't, if you look at my early list of folks interviewed, there were a couple of big names like yourself and Burton, but those were just to get my feet wet. You know what I mean? But if you look at the other folks, those early interviews, they weren't all big names. So I was really targeting folks again that normally would have an opportunity to be interviewed, but I wanted them to be heard. And that. So it was kind of dialing on the lesser known. I immediately wanted to target females. I wanted to get, let them be heard as well. So that, and then sooner as time went on, when we reached the 1,000 mark and we were eligible to monetize the YouTube channel, I wanted to give back to those who were, not, struggling financially, sick. So all our monies from the channel have always gone to donations and charity, whether it be children oriented or, masters who have become sick and whatever. So initially driven, lesser unknown being heard, kind of segue into the aforementioned, but now generating money for the sick and, and children.
Well, so then how did you manage to consistently find instructors for 499 interviews?
Well, in the beginning, it was, I don't want to say challenging, but I didn't have this great pull because I was not really well known myself at that time. I mean, so it was kind of a weird metric. So as my name started getting up there by the people I was affiliated with, and then I started getting more and more people on, then more and more people became interested in being interviewed. And then I started getting referrals in. So a lot of this kind of happened at the same time. My name getting up there, more referrals coming in, and people starting to just by exposure, just seeing the channel, coming on, and doing the interviews.
So more or less, it just kind of grew organically then.
Well, yeah, yes and no. But I'm going to tell you what really took us off was during the COVID period. In other words, late 2019, I had a break because what happened is initially I was using Facebook Live, but Facebook removed that option, didn't tell anybody, and so me and Dwight are like, well, what do we do now? And then Dwight said, hey, look, I found this app. One of my students referred to me. It's called Be Live. So there was like a few weeks there I was doing because I'm like, okay, I guess this is done. You know what I mean? That was pretty short lived. So Be Live, so there, but yes, there was absolutely some organic growth, but really where it took off was during COVID because everybody's home. They're either working from home or they're just can't go to work, the whole shutdown. So, and that included me, of course. So I was doing one in a week at that time. And I'm thinking like, all right, I don't have really much going on. Maybe I'll start doing twice a week. So that went to twice a week because again, I just didn't have a lot going on like the rest of the world. So that COVID period is what really launched us, like, because again, the views, like if I look at the interviews back then to now, way more views just because again, I mean, just the audience was home. So that's what really made it take off was that. So that my timing, which wasn't not with intention, is really was perfect. So, been a minute. Good to see you guys. Gray sweatpants. I got green ones on. I don't have gray. But yeah, so John Kuspas is here. His name will get mentioned. Freaking scary guy. Um, but yeah, so organic and just timing. I mean, that terrible event, as much as it sucked for all of us, the positive for me was that my channel really did grow up during that time.
Well, you made lemonade from that lemon.
Yeah, there you go.
So let me ask you then, what are some of the most memorable interviews that you conducted?
There's a lot, like, and people are going to think like, man, it's the big names, and there are a few on there for absolute, like, but most memorable was the first interview with you. I
Oh,
mean,
come on.
like, that was great. I mean, like, people, like, how I feel about you and a fan of you, but like, just talking, like, I could, like I tell everybody about you. There's very few people you can have a conversation and leave a better martial artist by virtue of a conversation. Like, that is a very small group of people, and you're in that group.
Thank you.
And so just by that interview, it's like it recompounded stuff with me. Like, the reason why I got better with you was hearing the same damn things over and over again. Sometimes I'm not the sharpest knife, but constantly good coaches. What do they do? NFL coaches, same thing, same thing, same thing, right? And so that your interview, here's a guy, man. He's under style law. His name is Nino Rapong. He lives in California. He's like 40. I think when I interviewed him, he was late 30s. It was incredible. Guy is virtually a nobody, very low key. But what he talked about, it was just incredible, from the moral arts and what he's doing in these kind of backyard, underground, if you will. He was fascinating. It's just too bad he's just not more well known. Episode 355, the infamous Renee. So Renee, that was a significant one because here's this guy, this dog brother, is kind of brute. And from afar, I'm like, man, this guy, he just seems like a little off. And so, but we talked a few on Messenger. I bring him on a show, and just so illuminating, and like just what he talked about, and some of like the way he presented himself and his experiences, and it was just really enjoyable in there, and it was just, yeah. So he's up there. My first interview with Brian Canara was really good. I mean, like, I had him on for Bowie Night, but the first one was just overall. I've had him on subsequent times too, but Brian, that was a really enjoyable one. And there, Steve Grody, just talking about Edgar's influence on the quality of the feed from Edgar and there. That was a really interesting talk. Attribute development. That was good. Maya Solderin, Maya she does the Cyan under the late great Sunny Umpad. She was brilliant, man. Just like, she talked about her books and all that. She was really good. Um, who else? He's right. I mean, he's on there. Michael Brewer. That was somewhat recent. That was a really good talk. I don't know. Are you familiar with Michael Brewer? You guys
No,
should
I'm
talk.
not. He just came on.
Yeah, you guys should talk. He's yeah, that was a really good conversation. Michael Brewer is one of those guys that I don't know if I should say someone on the radar, but when you talk to that guy, man, it's really enjoyable. So he was, yeah. The ones I mentioned now, kind of, I guess FMA related. Nene Tortal, you know why? He's just a sweet guy. He's just a sweet human being, man. Like, when you get down to community, the way people act and that crab mentality and this and that, like, he's just so polar opposite. Was just a sweet guy to talk to. Just, I can't wait to meet, and I mean, just generally a sweet guy, right? Um, Kirk McCune, like, his whole thing on the history of Stockton, because when he went up there, not only did he train with Jerome, but he was exposed to a lot of the greats there. It was really interesting, him giving that from like the old town hall, the dance hall they used there. Like really, the history of the Stockton was it was pretty neat what he shared there. That's kind of FMA related, but if I go outside, there were some fantastic interviews. Medusa, Brian Rodriguez did that one. It was, I mean, that was a great one. It kind of gave some exposure to a different night system out of FMA. Irish Stick, totally out of FMA box, but you're not going to believe this. That Irish Stick interview has more views than any interview I've done. Irish Stick, go figure, right? So Piper with Lloyd and Nigel. I have to give credit to Nigel. It was interesting there. So those two. Again, outside, Paulo, couple interviews with Paulo, like recaps. Like I would go, like I did, if I did the KI theme, I would go on there and do a recap with Paulo. And I think I did with PTK and some other stuff. So, and those were well received, as well as his uncle, Giampogi.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat.
Series like the one with Darren, My Paul, and yourself. That was that was really good. We did a series I did with Tim Hartman and Ace Ramirez. It was on how to go about opening an FMA school, kind of do's and do nots, and they gave like really good advice. It was really nice that like they really helped people that maybe wanted to do this, but maybe they didn't have a direction, enough information. That was really instrumental with a few people how to go about it. So that there, but those are the ones that really it's there. Ray Floro too. You know what I mean? Like, I have I'm partial to LeMayco for a number of reasons. If you look at my instructors, they directly or indirectly have a LeMayco background. So, and Ray Floro, I mean, his LeMayco and there. So, yeah. So all those, there you go. the short wind.
Well, all right. Well, that answers both 5 and 6 for questions, really. So
what was number 6? I'm sorry.
Because 6 was when interviews changed or expanded your perspective on FMA. I don't know if that's a separate question for you.
Definitely you. I mean, I keep getting expanded every time I'm in the same room with you or talk with you. Ray Floro, definitely. Steve Grody, definitely. From like people that have currently are influencing like what I do now, which is heavily in the attribute lane, tactics, and tactic based, right? Burton, Burton's up there too with the interviews, which I just can't believe his name's right there. I don't know how I missed that, but obviously Burton's interviews. Yeah. So, but if you look at Burton yourself, Steve Grody, Ray Floro, David Gould, right? There's that commonality. You know what I mean? Like you guys are all similar but different. You know what I mean? Like it's not a ton of drills, you guys. It's really you're dialing in to the activity. You know what I mean? And generally it's gonna be tactic based, right? I mean, so yeah, definitely on those guys.
All right then. So which FMA systems and styles are most commonly discussed in your interviews?
The 3. Modern knees, a lot of episodes on modern knees. Just there's a ton of modern knees has the most practitioners currently status quo in the world as far as FMA. It's modern knees. So modern knees, KI definitely got a lot of coverage. PTK because all the different factions, right? Those 3, I would say, those 3 systems definitely. If a 4th would maybe. Gosh, I think it really starts, there's Anasano Blend, there's Balento Walk, and also we covered Cabales, Heron, you know what I mean? But those 3 are really the most.
All right. So what have you learned about the diversity of FMA across different regions in the Philippines?
Same but different, like through the years of doing these interviews, Southern Philippines, Mindanao, kind of more guarded. You know what I mean? Like it was hard to get folks down there. Still, I mean, still has been, right? But
Why do you
far
think
as
that
like,
is?
yeah, it's just like, and I really made a concerted effort to get some folks on, but it just was tough. And we got the Visayan and Luzon. I mean, I don't really look at them. I'm not saying there's not differences. I mean, but Luzon, they say, is more stick based, but the sign you get more of the blade and stick. But obviously there's people doing edge weapons in Luzon. So it's, is there really besides dialect in there? You know what I mean?
Right, right. Okay. How have your interviewees influenced the growth of your own martial arts knowledge?
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, let's look at, Lamego K High. I mean, the coverage of their, is enhanced my knowledge and understanding of those systems. Interviewing you, I mean, my further understanding of a muck, the methodology, yeah, I mean, absolutely on that. And from my own personal lens, but like I can actually converse to somebody about my underneath. Like I can tell them, well, there's tappy tappy, but I mean, like you know what I mean? Just by virtue of doing these interviews, I can talk to somebody about tri-V versus dose methodose. And that all came through the interviews. You know what I mean? So
Right.
one from a personal, but also arts that I don't partake in, I still can converse on them, you know.
How has it helped your growth as a teacher and your student base?
All the above. One, just listening to people, like how they teach. Like, I mean, again, like I tell my students, like, how you've influenced context and methodology for me, like how to dial in so you're not all over the freaking map. Um, as far as teaching, like obviously you, um, you know, Ray Floro, just watching what he does and just like, from his attribute stuff, you know what I mean? Even though like I want to be completely transparent here. I've never done a lesson with him and I would love to under Ray Floro and some things, but you know better than I do, man. You get to a certain maturity level, and from observation, you can tell who's got it and who's don't. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And like Ray Flores is just one of those guys, man, who's got it.
And if you would allow me to interject, when I went to
Sure.
Australia, he treated me like family. What a great guy Ray Flora was to me. I couldn't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, like I have very few people that in the knife world. You're obviously in him that I have my top four, and it's you, Ray Floro, David Gould, and Grody. And gosh, how ironic they all have indirectly, directly a Lamego background. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, definitely on that, like how to teach, how to dial in, looking at people, certain sayings people do and that help get across better to the student or comparisons and cliches and, stuff like that. Like Dave, I mean, well, Dave, I mean, like Dave's got a really unique way through not just pain compliance, pain distraction, but a really unique way of like presenting things that, like, so between you and Dave, like my students know this too. They could tell you like, oh, well, who's Dean's influence? And then your two names will come up for different reasons, but, and there, so yeah, definitely. And now as far as student growth, absolutely, because they see who I'm training with. And I don't put a lot of videos out there because I'm just not that type of guy. Number one. Number two, I'm not going to start putting Piper and Medusa stuff out there, for example, where the wrong person sees it. So I think there's a aspect of responsibility there. So the stuff I have put out there, more on the defensive side, like, I'm like 2-on-1 stuff like that. But so people saw some of those videos and it wasn't, the fees weren't like this and they weren't like that. You know what I mean? Like, no, the people were bigger than me and they're trying to kill me. Right. And so, um, yeah. So, and people say, oh, wow, Dean seems like, and I think people saw some aspect of integrity through me,
Sure.
and, not that, and I wasn't polarizing politically, and I didn't act like a jerk on social media. So I think collectively, all those reasons, who was affiliated with some of the videos I have posted and shared, and I think like some of the posts I do make it, even if I didn't include a video, like the way I articulated things, I think, wow, it sounds like he knows what he's doing. So,
Well, that segues then, since you mentioned them, to in addition to FMA, you're also a proponent of Western Piper methods and Medusa methods. So, what influence have those methods had on your personal development?
the realization of why you should never let anybody get close to you don't know is one. Two, just how quickly things can go bad by letting somebody breach your personal space. Definitely that. Um, when you look at the common attacks out there, like I love sparring, dueling. I mean, that I wouldn't be with you, but if you look at attacks out there, it's really gross motor, just attachments, or just right. We're not. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, we have to be honest. So those two systems, Medusa, the bigger American prisoner, latching you there, Piper, kind of thimble, you're able to move around, not making attachments. Like water, you're going to find a gap, and so um, like I feel like an embedded duty to be the most relevant to my students. So if I'm not out there researching everything, giving the best version of myself to my students so they could be the best version, I don't think I'm fully doing my job. You know what I mean? Like, in there. And so that's really what it is. But by virtue of doing, there is obviously some enjoyment studying these systems in there. I mean, it's really weird. Like, this better anyway, man. Knife just brings out something. I don't know. I don't know if I can fully articulate it, the reasons why, but I think there's a DNA factor in us that certain folks, they gravitate towards knife, right?
I think so too. There's a certain mentality of a person that
Mm.
can recognize that and want to embrace that. And
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
and in the end, it's you're really talking about learning to save your own life or somebody else's. So it really
The
gets down
family,
to it,
right?
and that's it. And that's why what you just said about being the best you can be for your students, I believe, is so important to have that integrity, because when it comes to knife work, you're not talking about a bloody nose. Lives are at stake. And so if you're not constantly seeking to improve yourself so that you can be a better coach and trainer for them, then I think you're falling down on the job. That's just my personal opinion.
I don't think you're wrong. Like, and we can go down a real rabbit hole here. So I'll take the like, you know, I used to be a little more vocal. I had a group called Blade Technologies back pre 2007 in there. And I was really coming across like realistic knife defense. And what ended up happening was I was just pissing people off because I was coming in there like saying like in there, and all I was doing was I wasn't doing really, my intentions were constructive. I was just pissing people off. Like like they, you know what I mean? Like I was, and that wasn't my intention, but it just happened through just emotional folks that had emotional attachments, and they just didn't want to hear. And who the hell was I? And they just justifiably were probably correct. Now though, I'm much more reserved. I'm like, this is what I do. They're gonna do what they do. Long as, and we've had this conversation, integrity, honesty, right? Integrity ourselves, honesty to our students, right? Like, and there's some that are playing cosplay or what they think is going to work against MD and against knife. And so I don't say anything anymore just because you end up arguing with somebody that you're probably never going to meet face to face. You're not really going to impact his decision. It's like political. I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't vote for Trump, or Trump's this, Trump that, but you're not going to change my opinion, and vice versa, right? Um, so I strayed away from that, but it's not that I don't recognize it. It's not that I don't see it's out there. It's not that I don't recognize port feeds or the spatial gap between the feeds or the intent after initial contact is made. Is the pressure still? I mean, of course I see all that. You know what I mean? I'm just not saying anymore. You know?
Well, I understand. I have long since given up trying to explain myself or to help somebody understand something who is committed to misunderstanding me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, and you like I don't need to tell you anything. You're like the pioneer of like creating a system that was just solely predicated on knife, before SAOC. I mean, so I mean, is it frustrating? I'm not saying I don't get frustrated. I'm saying I've made a conscious choice not just to say anything anymore. You know what I mean? Like, because they're going to do what they're going to do. So because I say something, they're going to immediately stop doing that.
right.
Right? It just becomes just such a waste of time because then you got to go back and check what they said back to you, and now you're wasting time during the day looking at social. It just spirals. You know what I
Well,
mean?
in the end, people do what they do because that's their value system.
Yeah.
And your opinion is not really going to change someone's value system for the most part because they've arrived at that value because of it's what they enjoy. So that, and to me that's the difference between a functionalist who says, hey, wait a minute, we have to seek a greater functionality, and when we find it we must adopt it and adapt to it. Where enthusiasts get to say, oh, we do this because we enjoy it. Okay. And I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy being a functionalist. I'm just saying is that the task dictates the work itself. Where enthusiasts can do what they enjoy, and why should they do anything different? It's what they like.
Yeah, and I have no issue with that. As long as you're not saying this would work, particularly within the under the
Well,
module of knife, you're not saying this is going to work. But if
and
you're
and
saying, hey,
I
guys, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm showing you what was given to me. I'm showing you the art. Goes back to like me, like you mentioned, like okay, they're maintaining integrity and they're being honest with their students, right?
right, right. So long as you're upfront about what you're doing, that's all that matters.
Yeah. But there is this gray area though. This is something I noticed in FMA discussion. It's like they'll touch upon functionality, but then it's you know what I mean? Like they'll go up to the fence and like they're proclaiming they're functional, and then boom, you know what I mean? Um, and it's gray. But yeah, that's a
It
whole
is,
nother.
but I kind of like those guys because in some ways that you can see that they have the value that they want to be more functional. I think a lot of times they don't know how to bridge that, how to step over that line the right way without giving up too much of what they're already doing. And so they kind of default back to what they know because on the other side of the fence, they don't know what's there. So I find a lot of those guys interesting to talk to. Again, for me, I typically probe their value system before I discuss anything about tactics or training.
Yeah, yeah, you're clever. Yeah, right, right. And I totally agree with you. I also think though it's a lot of it is always for views. Like I'm just being honest. I think some of them do it where they'll show that like, hey, see, this is real, man. We're doing like real, functional training here, guys. This is with resistance, and if you've been in that pocket, man, you've been in there in the trenches, man. You just know, well, like for numerous reasons, the feed wasn't after contact. The feed wouldn't even land. I mean, I can go on and on, but I think there's an aspect of that for views and stuff. But I do totally agree
Sure,
with what
sure.
you're saying that hey, maybe they would cross that line if they had a conversation with you, for instance. You know what I mean? You know?
At the same time, that this industry has no lack of virgins teaching sex,
Yeah, and
and of
I see.
course, those of you who know better, you can tell the moment they open their mouth or as soon as you see them move. All right,
Mm,
but to everybody else who doesn't know better, it sounds perfectly plausible, and that's just the way. That's the nature of the beast.
yeah, and this is all encompassing, meaning what we're talking about, like integrity, honesty, and even though knife is a subject matter, um, and again, like on a daily basis in FMA discussion, just what I'm being exposed to and what is going to work and what is not, and like like for instance, like if it's not full out, and if in other words, if I see everything done with a 120-pound guy, I don't even watch it anymore. I just don't watch anymore. And I'm not saying there might not be some. I'm just saying it doesn't interest me. I don't want to watch it. Now you show the guy's bigger than you, man, and you're in there, and you're man. You got my attention now. You know what I mean? Like you got my attention. You got my respect now. But if you're doing something that, or the guy can't hit you in the face because you don't have a helmet on, but you're able to access his center and do all that, I don't watch because it's just the guy can't even. You know what I mean? Like you know this better than anybody. So it's like the you know, not you don't need to hear from me, right?
Okay. Thank you for that. Let's move on. And I want to ask you, what challenges have you faced in running a discussion group with 500 episodes?
Ooh. So it was, I started the group for a library to put the interviews in and to announce interviews and at the same time give people a place where they can share their content, discuss things. So again, being kind of naive, I'm thinking, well, they'll behave. They're adults. So when it got to 3,000, like things were pretty quiet, pretty smooth. I'm like, oh wow, this is pretty easy, man. I don't need help. I can, status quo. So, but something happened, like a dynamic after 3,000. I'm putting out fires left and right. Like I'm kicking people out. I'm like arguing people, telling what they should and shouldn't do that live God knows how many miles from me. And finally, I got to put rules and I got to get some help. The moment I did that, 180. Yes, I definitely had to remove people, but people saw that I was setting a very specific tone. And that is, we can disagree. You can go back and forth, but there's no name calling. There's none of that, excessive profanity and all that, or you're gone. So you have to live by that. Because you know what I mean? So yeah, like there was 2 weeks, literally, I probably kicked out like 20 people. But I tell you though, it's set the tone. Here's how I know. Because something happened and some people, hey, you can't do that in this group, man. Dean will remove you. And now it's been on like autopilot. Like I can't remember the last person like I had to remove or block. So we're close to, I don't know, I think it's around 18,000. Obviously, not all 18 participate, right? But for 18,000, I'm not kicking anybody out. You know what I mean? So
you've done a great job with it. My hat's off
yeah.
to you. You've done a great job with it.
Hey, Dean, just say when a guy starts fingering you, then you got my yeah. Oh, Jesus. Sounds like somebody's wants pressure testing and that. Jeez. We're talking. My God. But you know what? Let me just give some hellos. And I usually do this, and I feel like I'm lacking in my duties. Oh, we got Eric O'Brien. He's that crazy guy in your state. Frank Shakowski, Terry Joven, Lalo, Mexico, Brent, Richard Packman, Yui from Germany, Romel, hey Romel, Renee, that Renee guy, Yumi, Orlando, John Kuspis, Paulo, Brian Canada, GM Ray, Michael Brewer, Richard Parsons, hey. I just feel bad if I don't say hi. Angelo, who's that guy? He's a muck guy, isn't he? John Kuspis, Scary John. Heil, all right. Kurt, okay. I think I'm caught up. Joe Lennon, yeah. There's a guy you should, he's really interesting, Tom. Joe Lennon. Joe Lennon can make weapons appear virtually out of nowhere. I'm telling you, you have to see some of this stuff, Tom. He plays
I'll
the
touch
perfect
base with
bad.
him.
His material is being the best, being the perfect bad guy. So he's able to breach, have a phone like this, and all of a sudden the gun comes. It's the craziest stuff, man. Norman Taylor. All right. I think I'm caught up. Okay. All right. Okay. Don't read the comments here, Dean. We're totally okay. Mike Brewer. All right. I'm back. I'm sorry.
All right, then. So next one. How has the community responded to your interviews and group discussions? I think you've kind of covered that in some ways, but I'd like to see if you have something specific to say about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, I overall really well. I got to tell you, what happened was, the first year, I don't recall dealing with anything political. Second year, it was like a couple things. There was a change. Third year, I'm not saying a steady dose of it, but definitely exponentially more than the second year. Fourth year, there was some ugliness, and what started to happen was, as I'm doing more, covering more, I went to some theme episodes with good intentions, but to be honest, there are a couple questions that I probably shouldn't have asked, hold myself accountable, that did upset some people and cause some political stuff and that. And it was just a change of direction as far as interviews and there. And it was, again, two questions. But here's the thing, though. When you get, when your name gets up there and you do something wrong, man, you are going to be, it's like that, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, do they go after the center of a football team, or they look at the quarterback? And Burton said the best thing to me, because one day I got on with him and I was just down, and he's just like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just been dealing with this stuff and I don't know what happened." You know what I mean? He goes, "You're carrying the ball." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "They go after the person's carrying the ball." He goes, "You are carrying the ball, so they're going to target you, and some are going to want to bring you down for no other reason than jealousy, whatever. And so if you do something wrong, there's going to be certain folks that are they're going to make a bigger deal out of it. They're going to hold you in contempt." And yeah, so that was hard getting used to, because I really went in this with, and I've proven this, like really bringing folks on, letting them be heard, and trying to really do good for the community. And so when that backlash came at me, I was like, man, where'd that come from?
Well, some people will only get a taste of notoriety by taking a bite out of you.
Good point. Yeah. And we got John here, Savage. All right. Danny Terrell, Coach Danny. Yeah. So that was, yeah. But overall, the feedback has been wonderful. I mean, there are some people that are slighted because you covered instructor. They're not in line within a faction. I mean, there was some stuff big. This is going to be a big shocker, Tom. There was some stuff with PTK. Could you imagine?
Heavens.
You know what I mean? But there's some really good people in PTK. So, it was that in KI. Like KI got kind of weird, man. Just with what the old man did versus what people are doing today, and is it the evolution, or is it a whole change of direction? I mean, like, and if you stay at opinion, hey, whoa, you weren't there. No, you can't. I'm just telling you, crazy.
Yeah, it's highly charged.
Yeah, so that was some tough stuff, because when you go when you're used to, like, hey, thank you for bringing me on. Nobody ever let me, be heard, and stuff like that. And then you come to, like, and if you, like, I had to click in, you know what I mean? And I tell you, but it resulted in the best thing I ever did. I took a month off. I left. I'm like, bye. And people were like, where'd he go? What's going on? You know what I mean? And, and Paulo made a couple funny posts like, well, what do you guys deserve it? You guys want to act like this? Of course he's gone. You know what I mean? And then I took the month, but I tell you, it was probably something I should have did sooner. It was the best thing, because when I came back recalibrated. I said, look, this is part of it now. You're going to have to accept this. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to navigate through this if you want to continue doing this. And here I am. So
yeah, right. I remember that, by the way. I do.
Yeah.
Who would you say are some of the most influential practitioners that you interviewed?
Wow. Influence on the community or me personally?
I would say on the community.
Yeah, Mark Wiley. I mean, like like when he was over there, early 20s, where however old he was. I mean, when he got exposed to all those guys and put it in the book, and then we got access to the book. So, I mean, Mark Wiley,
His books are great. Yeah, really.
I mean, come on, I mean, you can't deny what he's, the impact he's had, right? On the community. Yeah, Dan Asano, I didn't get the interview, so I can't say him. Tim Hartman, I'll tell you why. From a premise of having an FMA school, how to have an FMA school. In other words, and this is going to come to a subsequent question of yours, like as far as the longevity FMA. Like if we don't start getting schools going and get out of the backyard mentality, there's going to be some systems that are going to fade away and be done. So, so I think Tim, I'm not going to say much, like Mark Wiley, but I think Tim has a spot in that. Paulo Rubio with his, I mean, there's nobody telling me he hasn't had an impact on the FMA community. You know what I mean? Just his social media and what he's done, right?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, he's the best at that.
Yeah, I would agree, right? Yeah. So within the pure FMA lens, I say pure. Yeah, Tim, Mark Wiley, Paulo, and Tim also has a show. Off the top of my head, those three.
So, what advice would you give to someone looking to start their own FMA journey?
Don't lose sight that you're the most important piece of student. Don't lose sight of the system or the teacher. You are the most important piece because they can't survive without you and other students. And so don't ever forget that you are of value. You have a value, and what happens is you get these folks, they get in these big systems and their number. And I've been in a couple, and yeah, and you end up losing sight of your identity. You know what I mean? And that, so my advice would be never lose your identity. If you're not getting what you want, go. You got one journey. You get one journey, and don't waste time on something that's not fulfilling an aspect of fun, growth, camaraderie. I mean, whatever. If you're not, I mean, go. Because I'm telling you, like we all have spent time somewhere, more time than we should have, through the false sense of loyalty or whatever. And I'm telling you, don't do it. You get one journey.
That's real good advice. It really is. How would you prepare for each interview, and how do you customize your approach for different instructors?
And it'd be well, like anything else, the more you do something right, the better you get at it. And in there, so in the beginning, I was very like, like it was OCD, like, just oh, Alvin's here. Hey, Maestro Alvin, hope you're doing well. And so yeah, like I would really prepare. Like I would look at their bio, I would look at their background, I would look at the current social media content, try to formulate questions around that. But as time went on, not only did I get to know people better in systems, that preparation became less and less. And so I was able to really dial in on certain things I want to extract from the interview. So I was able to fine tune more. So the evolution was just like, I just became better. Like in the beginning, I kept it kind of really generic. Okay, you have FMA background, I mean, and not that it wasn't good stuff, but as time went on, I was able to dial in more. So it's not that I still don't do prep. I do. But like, for instance, if I interview Brian Kanada and we're going to dial in on something, hey, Brian, let's dial in on prison systems versus FMA. I'm not going to need to do an outline for that. Me and Brian will click in there and we're going to go. I can have Renee on tomorrow, Coco, and we'll find something. I won't need to write anything up because, I mean, so in other words, if there's a a connection, an existing connection, I don't need to do that. But if I don't know the person, I do my due diligence in depth. Why? Because it's not fair to the person you got coming on that you didn't prepare for, right?
Right. Well, as well, that speaks to your skill as an interviewer as you've evolved over time. So definitely.
Absolutely. Yes, it absolutely did, Renee. And we got lucky, right? Mm.
Can you share a surprising or unexpected story from one of your interviews?
Yeah, one's kind of a sad one. It almost really it was a tearjerker. So I was so fortunate enough, so lucky enough to be able to interview Felix Valencia before he died. Um, and I'm really grateful I was able to get that opportunity. So he did. Unfortunately, he passed some. I don't remember the exact time frame, but it wasn't that far from his interview. And his daughter messaged me, and this is tough. She goes, "I just want to thank you, that you interviewed my father and gave him a chance to be heard and exposed and all that. From coming from the daughter, so that I'll never forget that. Like,
Yeah.
I could stop doing interviews for 10 years and I'll never forget that. The other one was Jason Ward reached out to me and he goes, hey, I just, I want to thank you for what you do because of you, I got back into FMA now.
Right on.
When you hear something like that, I mean, that's, that's, yeah, that was nice. Yeah. Okay, there. Oh, hey, good room, Ramon. And we got Sachi. All right.
Okay, so the next one is, how do you handle debates or disagreements within the community during your discussions? And I know you've already talked about that, so you might have anything that you want to add to it. How,
Yeah, because that'll go kind of with the modeling effect. So in other words, if you watch how I conduct myself in interviews, there's a direct correlation to how I conduct myself and my expectations in a group. They're not polar opposites. So I have to have that consistency. You know what I mean? Like I can't run the group like that. Then I go on an interview and I go on a tirade and, just profanity up and down and yada, yada. So I really try to mirror the fairness and equity and expectations of the group and how I conduct myself in an interview. So there's parallel, you know what I mean? And that consistency. So with that being said, I have zero tolerance for you disrespecting somebody that you, or God knows how many miles, because you're behind a keyboard. Like I just have zero tolerance for that. Like I don't understand. I'm not being sarcastic here. Like I don't understand the thought process that you're calling somebody a name that you never met over a disagreement that you're probably never going to meet. Like I just don't understand that.
oh, that's why they're calling them names.
Yeah, there you go. Like I don't understand that. And here I've always told this myself. Dean, don't ever get an altercation unless you wouldn't punch Mike Tyson in the face for the same issue. So like I don't care if that guy's 100 pounds, he's mother effing me. I am not gonna hit him because I wouldn't hit Mike Tyson if he was mother effing me. So and that's something I've always adhered to throughout. You know what I mean? Like, and I kind of just take that into how I conduct myself on here. And I think people see the consistency, and I do think they appreciate it. Like, I think it'd be really weird if I acted one way and then acted another way, via the group. You know what I mean? I think people would be like, oh, what's this? What's this about? That's not Dean. What's going on here? So I think that's important to have that, I think, right? The technique is called the Cosby. Jesus. And we got GM Yuli's here. All right.
Alrighty then. So what role do you think social media plays in the modern growth of FMA?
Well, huge. And not just FMA, of course, but FMA. In other words, going back to COVID, okay, can't go to group classes. Schools are shutting down. Folks, they need to keep on. What are they doing? They're going to Zoom. They're going online, right? And that has become such a tool for delivery of information, connection, right? It's not going away. And I haven't even brought up monetarily. You know what I mean? So it's not going away. Like if you got somebody in the Philippines who's doing well for them, you think they're going to give that up now? It's not going away. It is here to stay. Now, do I think it could be abused? Of course. So I think you need to go, but I think it also could be a tremendous asset um, in learning in conjunction with physical content. I mean, contact, sorry, in there. In other words, like we have it set up in the Western Piper methods. Okay, the first two levels, part level 3, they can be done online. Okay, as long as they show some good video and they give some good feedback where we can discern movement and what they're doing, and it doesn't look like something else. But there's a certain point where we do need to see another person, right? So we do have we have a boundary, right? So in other words, back to FMA, I think it's really good pending the content. But here's the other thing where some instructors I think can abuse it.
Yeah,
If
no
you
doubt.
know what you're showing really requires a training partner, but you're not doing that and you're kind of just throwing everything on Bob just because you want to stay relevant and you have this student base that you need to do. I think we're getting now into a questionable scenario. But like for instance, when a lot of times when I do myself, I have a training partner. Like if it needs for a training, he's there. I just don't do it because it's not fair to the audience. I'm getting into now an ethical thing with myself. So I just, there, but so those who get the training partner and they do, and they show that, I think it could be really, really good. But ultimately, to me, there's a ceiling level, which is somewhat flexible, paying the student, right? But that you need to make the transition in person, right?
And in addition to the content, there's the presentation of that medium as well. If you're a person that wants to be putting your videos on social media, and if you're not studying Paulo Rubio for his expertise in actually how he does that, then you're losing one of the best sources of training. Because whether you like his content or not, are you studying how he presents his material and how he goes about doing that? To me, I think he's the best at that. I look at all of that stuff that he does because to me it's a learning process. So look, you have the content that you want to put out there, but if you don't have a presentation for that content, it's going to fall flat, even if it's good content. So
yeah,
that's my take on it.
No, I agree, because now we have two spectrums here. Right. We have the advertising aspect, but then we have the teaching, right? So they're both part of this there. Like I'm doing a lot of teaching online now there. But my advertisement is god awful there. Like I don't really promote myself. My promotion really indirectly comes through FMA Discussion, but it's not me. Like I advertise seminars, okay, but it's not like me saying like, "Hey guys, I'm doing this, and I'm taking 5 new students now," or something like that. Like that, I don't do that. I never will do that, right? I kind of like to grow it organically, in there, word of mouth, if you will. So so you got the advertising thing aspect, and how to make short videos where you're drawing 1 million viewers because you're a content wizard, right? You know what I mean? You know how to draw. And then, of course, there's the teaching ability online. And I tell you, and some people, they shouldn't, it's not for everybody teaching online. Like here's another thing too about teaching online. What I found, man, when you get in front of somebody, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, cause you got to get pretty creative and dial in on certain things and really be explicit in your verbiage and parallel that to your physical demonstration. But now when you go in person, it's like I think it's just going to elevate your game in that regard,
Sure, of course. Which interview has received the most engagement from your community, and why do you think that is?
Probably Mark Wiley. There were a ton of comments. Like if you get over, like in other words, if I do an interview and I get 100 comments, that's a lot. Like that, man, like that's a really good interview. You get 100 comments, even like if you get 50 or over is good, but you get 100, I think his was around like close to 200 mark. I mean, there was a lot of interaction when he was on, like not just questions, but just commentary, overall commentary when I had him on.
Have you considered expanding beyond Facebook, perhaps to podcasts? Well, it says for YouTube or your interviews, and you've already done that, so the question's kind of moot. So I'll jump over right to the next one. How do you ensure that you cover the breadth and depth of FMA in your interviews?
While there were more styles that got interviewed more than others, but I did make a very concerted effort to get like all systems covered. Like if you look like there are a few that I regrettably have just not, like Topato, like the long stick. Like I really wanted to get somebody on there. I couldn't find anybody. I wanted to get some more arts in there. Nobody would come on, right? So, but if you look at like, some of the smaller arts, like, it's big in Europe, but like for instance, before he passed away, Rene Latosa, we cover that. Lanada, we cover that. I mean, like, so there's systems that we covered that are, they're not that well known, but of course we've also covered your bigger ones. So if you look at the spectrum of all this is we covered, if you were to go down chronologically down the list of episodes, I mean, you're going to see like it's pretty well represented as far as the variety of the different systems in there. And this is where, and also distinction of like, okay, FMA, then, well, Filipino American martial arts, meaning like we even covered Dog Brothers, who kind of falls under the brother of Filipino American martial arts, you know what I mean? As well as there. So that I'm really happy about. Yeah, I mean, I wish there could have been, the ones that I just couldn't get folks to come on and do. But I'm satisfied by the wide range of coverage.
What do you believe are the key principles of FMA that make it unique from other martial arts?
Weapon centric, weapons before empty hand, you know what I mean? The diversity of weapons, the use of two weapons, whether same length or different configurations, you know what I mean? Like if you look at our system, I mean, that definitely sets it apart. The flow ability, having flow, the different ranges, your different styles, whether one's more of an edge weapon style, this is more of a blunt, or this is all encompassing, you know what I mean? Or this is, more empty hand, like, Kung Tao, for instance, like, Lima Lima, for instance, right? Then Sikaran, kind of your kicking, right? Dumog or whatever, depending on who you talk to, if it exists or not, I mean, right? Or, so your grappling centric ones right there. So I would say that, I mean, like it is diverse. I mean, like, okay, if you talk, other systems, compare contrast to like Taekwondo. I'm not saying Taekwondo doesn't have weapons, but if you look at FMA as a whole, I mean, empty hand all the way to clinch to grappling. I mean, it's all in there. You know what I mean? Like, everybody says JKD, the whole 4 ranges and the 5 ways of attack. I'm sorry, and nothing against JKD. I mean, I was a practitioner. I got associate instructorship. I mean, so I'm not pulling this out of a hat. But FMA not only had 4 ranges before Bruce Lee, but guess what? It also had the 5 ways of attack. You know what I mean? You're trying to tell me Illustrissimo didn't do the 5 ways of attack? You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And as well, when you look at a culture, if you look at a country like South Korea, how many different types of arts do they have? Where when you look at the Philippines, there's such an incredible variety and diverse palette of different things to choose from. So that's one of the things that really attracted me to FMA early on was the diversity and variety of what's offered.
No, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, much to your point. I mean, Jesus, like, and their systems being made up now as we talk. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, man, like a couple systems have come in FMA discussion. Like, I want to say I'm pretty privy to like what I know for the 5 years and covering the systems there. There are systems coming in there, man. I got to be honest with you, and I'm not saying they're not legit, man, but never heard of before. So I don't know. I'll leave that at that. Uh-oh.
What is the most common misconception people have about FMA according to your interviews?
I'm sorry. Misconception.
Yeah, what are the most common misconceptions that people have about FMA?
Oh, I think the totality of a complete system. I think they largely consider like oh, that stick system. They twirl the stick. You know what I mean? Like so I think stick centric. I think they don't realize all the ranges that we mentioned, the diversity of it. The different styles that some are specific to whether a blunt or edged. It's not, and the thing is, I mean, not being the household name like MMA or BJJ or traditional arts. I think that alone, just the unknown, and leads to question mark, speculation, or guessing. But that's pretty much what I've gotten there. Renee's got a question. Oh my God, this is funny. Anything is gonna be funny. His question is, Tom, can you ask Dean Franco why he has not changed the broken blinds in 500 episodes? So here's the broken blinds that he is referencing. Okay, here's why I have not changed them. They've been such a staple of my background. People, I think, would get overly concerned. Why did Dean change his blinds? Here's the other thing too, Tom. Do you know Renee was supposed to run a GoFundMe fundraiser for my blinds? How about that, Renee?
Well, Dean, how do you see the future of FMA, both in the Philippines and globally?
I'm hearing in the film by Renee Tonks and Jim Renee that they're doing a lot of great stuff with the kids. They're starting to get the youth up in there. They have youth organizations. They have tournaments. I think that's wonderful. They made it the national sport, and stuff like that. I think you're going to see some growth in the Philippines, which I think is fantastic. And I hope that continues and goes beyond expectations, right? I think in the U.S., I think we're looking at a very different picture in the Western civilization. And not that I want to be doom and gloom, but what I mentioned before about the Philippines really concentrating on the youth and bringing up, whether it's WECAF or PCAF, the tournaments, but they're getting the youth involved. We don't have that going on here. We don't have, quote unquote, like a farm team where we're there. Yes, there's some groups in California that have kids included, and I think that's wonderful. Tim Hartman is cool. He's got kids, but it's not the norm. And I think you're going to see some systems, and I hope I'm wrong. Like people, this is one of the things that people got upset about when I said this, and they misconstrued what I said. And what I mean is that if nothing changes status quo, I do think you're going to see some systems really get hit hard far as lineage and continuation. I don't want to be right. I hope I'm not right, but I just think if we're not perpetuating with the youth, how else are they going to grow? Who is going to carry them forward? I mean, Tim Hartman brought up a great point, and it's so true, kind of sad. BJJ, like FMA has been in this country like what, since the 60s, right? Or maybe earlier, if I had to guess, maybe 60s. BJJ came in on the scene in what, like 93, maybe early 90s, and is blown out FMA. So there's that's obviously an issue. Like, and I'm not saying I have the answer, but I know what needs to be a part of it. If I model the Taekwondo business model, kids, right? BJJ, look at them. Look at the kids program in BJJ. It's huge. So if we don't do something about that, yeah, I think some of these systems are going to be, it's going to be tough for them to continue.
You're absolutely right about that. When I was in Portugal, I heard that one of the masters from Jogo de Pau was on one of the other islands. So I flew over there and took some lessons from him. And, at dinner, he was saying, well, it's difficult because the younger generation right now, they don't want to do it as much. It's hard to interest them. And he goes, and I don't know how to bridge that. And I said, well, that's because you're talking to them instead of their mothers. And he said, what do you mean? I said, their mothers tell them what to do. Their mothers have the checkbook. You know what I mean? If you can show the benefit of this to the parents and especially the mothers, I said, then you probably stand a chance of getting more kids. And 2 years later, when I went back, one of the other guys called me and he said, hey, I have to tell you, we have a kids group going on over here now, and it's rocking. And I said, how'd you do that? And he said, we talked to the mothers.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, though. Like, I mean, think about it. It's not like you go around the corner, you're going to see an FMA school. And here's another thing that really raised an issue. And what Tim said was, and I understand why he said this, okay? But people took it like, oh, you're not, you're putting down FMA, you're taking away from the, I mean, it was just some emotional response. But I understand it. Tim would say, we need to take the F out. Just martial arts school. You can, I mean, teach whatever you want. I mean, let them know once they get in the door, it's FMA, right? You know what I mean? Like, Tim's not hiding what he does once they're in there, but for the growth. And here's why. And this is where I kind of agree with them. Parents, okay, mothers, for instance, fathers work, so the mother's probably signing them up, right? Okay. If you asked a mother about MMA, she would know what it means. BJJ, she probably would know what it means by infomercials, social, et cetera, et cetera. If you said FMA to a mother, unless she's got a husband or a boyfriend that's active, they're not going to know what that means. But if you say karate, right? So they're going to go by just association. So if they have an interest in signing their kid up, they want to get their kid involved in martial arts, they're going to go with status quo and what they are exposed to. They're not exposed to FMA. Right? Yes, we're in the movies. Okay. And I think that's great. But that has not been good enough,
Well, I think also the challenge can come from the fact that when it comes to children, FMA already has one strike against it because it's a weapons-based art. And so look, when you look at BJJ, they're like rolling around. It looks more like wrestling. You get to tap out. It doesn't look violent and so forth. They even like the way some karate does compared to the way some BJJ looks to the average person who's just looking at it. And then when you look at FMA and they've got sticks and they're fighting with weapons and they're moving fast and they're flowing, a lot of times people look at that and like, I don't want my kid to learn weapons like that because they don't understand the value behind doing that and why that's important and the coordination and rhythm and timing and footwork and all of those other benefits. So I think that the benefits of FMA are not as readily observable to the average individual. And I think that's part of the issue. So maybe Tim has a good idea about, losing the F part and letting people discover what the F is and what the benefits of Filipino martial arts are when they go there. Maybe that will help to some degree.
And I can test this. This one I didn't, when I had my school, I opened up in 2002. And I just couldn't stand teaching Taekwondo anymore. Couldn't stand it. I just hated it. So I'm like, you know what? I don't freaking care. I don't care if I lose all my student body. I don't care if I start all over. But what I did was I basically taught MMA and FMA. And I was using the Atienza pilot program when Action Flex 6 just came out. Everything was perfect, right? It was like stars were lined up. But I'm going to tell you right now, it was called Family Martial Arts. If I put back in 2002 MMA, FMA, I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't have gotten like kids now. But because I just made it, Family Martial Arts, when they got in there, they saw we punched, they saw we did some kicking, they saw clinch, they saw ground, and then lastly they saw the weapons, and all there. But if it was just weapon centric and it had one of those names, I wouldn't I wouldn't be having this conversation with you right now. You
Right.
know. So we got Gary and Danny. What's Coach Danny saying? All the parents, kids, what we need. Yeah, karate. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, Gary, John Savage. Yeah. All right. Tom is 100%. Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, like like you go to observe a class and you're seeing a bunch of kids swinging winning sticks, and maybe that happened to be doing when you walked in there. You know what I mean? Obviously, that's not all Tim does, but yeah, what's your point? So it's a tough thing because I get like I understand by taking F out that's going to offend people, and I understand why they would be offended. But if you want it to grow and you want these arts to be still relevant and be around, I don't know. I'm not saying I have the answer. But I know kids need to be involved. That's all I know.
So this is a loaded question. Do
Okay.
you have a personal favorite style or system within FMA that resonates with you?
Oh my God. Yeah. Actually, it's loaded and easy. So definitely, KI Lameco. Lameco, obviously, the last major system was added to Lameco was KI, right? And so, and one thing is this caused some controversy and some people got upset, but I feel Lameco is so just not looked at, just kind of undervalued and doesn't get enough hyper exposure. But if you look at the Lameco of the 5 pillars of KI, man, I don't know if anybody deals with attribute development better than Lameco. Like you've seen David, man. I mean, it's like, where did he get that from? Edgar. I mean, um, so yeah, but I do love KI. I love it. I unfortunately I don't like some of the politics in KI. You know what I mean? But I love the art, and so KI, yeah, Lamego with under the lens of FMA. I lens of FMA amok.
So, how have these 500 interviews shaped your personal FMA practice?
Heavily, again, it kind of correlates with the chosen two. So I dial into attribute development. Um, I don't. It's not that I don't have appreciation for drills, but the drills don't equate to what we're doing here. I tend not to want to do them, to be honest. And I'm not. And I'm not. I don't want to sound ignorant here or dismissing. I just know at this point in my life, I know what works for me. Like anything else, the more mature, the more we get, there's a sense of maturity that we get, and we're able through that maturity and that growth, we're able to dial in, and we know what we want, and we know what works for us. Right? It doesn't mean we don't appreciate what else was out there. We just know what fits us and what we need and what we want to refine in. And I'm at that point. So to me, it's got to be tactic based. Like I don't want strands of memorization, right? I don't want to weed anymore. So if you look at the arts I'm doing, there's congruency. Okay. And Lameco from the FMA is the glue. Okay. So yourself, Lameco. There was KI. I mean, Lameco, right? And there. And so if you look at that, and then Burton obviously had some exposure, KI and Edgar, and there. But all of you guys, there's nothing that I had to really remember. Like I don't remember having the only thing I had to remember with you was how to put up and present the circle functionality, the 4 triangles, the methodology, the context to methodology, right? Circle functionality, all that. But far as the physical content on your tactics, I really didn't have to remember anything. I just had to go out there and be better at it than I was the day before. Burton's the same way. Dave is all about tactics and attribute. Dave didn't give me anything to remember. I'm going to try to kill you, and you have to stop me from killing you.
I remember well.
Yeah, I'm gonna. You know what I mean. I'm going to stop from breaking your hand, and you might want to put this on. Right? And Bird's the same way. You're the same way. Like I met with Steve Bird, he was the same way. And that's where I gravitate. In other words, less is more for me. Not just information, but I don't like big organizations. I don't do well in big organizations. Like I was with SAOC, like it, I was disconnected. It was just too big for me. Like I felt like I was a number. So I like that small, quaint, where there's intimate, where you actually can talk to an instructor. You have a relationship with the instructor. And all my instructors, I have that with. There's no disconnect because otherwise I'm just not going to be there. Like if there's not a good ongoing relationship, like I don't have time for it. It's just not going to be conducive for my growth in there.
Okay, how do you feel about reaching this milestone of 500 interviews?
It's funny. Everybody asks, like, man, I can't believe you've done 500. I can't. And it hasn't hit me yet. I think what's going to happen is I think I need to be removed. I really do. I think once I'm removed, I'm no longer doing this, whenever that happens or whatever happens after this. I think then maybe when the dust settles, I think maybe it'll hit me then. Maybe. But right now, because I'm still in it, it hasn't really hit me that I've like, done 500. I mean, like everybody says, like a couple people said, Maya Paulo said, like, hey, you'll understand the magnitude of what you did when years go by. And when people look on YouTube and they see, or wherever it's held, or whether it's on a website then or wherever it's put, right? They're gonna then that's when the magnitude is really gonna hit when they go to look, and a lot of these grades have passed, but yet there's gonna be this virtual library where they can actually hear and see these folks. And I'm not saying they're not right. What I'm saying is I can't even think about that. This is the guy who, when started late fall, October 9, 2019, had no expectations. My first one was anybody listen to me. Then when things started going along, okay, this is here. Okay, my goal was always I'm going to go to 100. I'm going to reevaluate. If folks are still listening to me, there's interest. I'll keep going. 200. Folks are still listening to me. 300. Folks are still listening to me. That's kind of what's been my metric. So when I think about like, what those guys said, like, 20 years down the road, that's when it's really good there. I mean, maybe they'll be right. I don't know. But I think when I'm detached, I think I probably will look at it. I'll be like, holy crap, man, I did 500 interviews. I don't know.
Well, it's an incredible body of work. And, I can understand because you're still in it. That's kind of, it's like taking a long walk and you haven't turned around to look back at where you started.
Yeah.
And I think that over time, I think that gentleman you spoke of was absolutely right. That I think that the perspective is going to give you an appreciation for the massive amount of information that you've left behind. It's just really what you've done is incredibly impressive, and nobody else has come close to doing that. So it's really something. It's a great gift that you've given to the FMA community worldwide. I think it's a real gift.
That's the thing too. Like the one thing I will say, and I don't know if this constitutes patting myself on the back. I never wanted anything monetarily from this. I mean, everything that the channel earned when we did reach 1,000 and we were able to be monetized has gone to charity. And there's absolute evidence of that. Not kept any of it. It's either gone to children's foundations, orphans, or needy masters, right? It's been well documented. And so, we ran raffles, but the last few raffles, nobody was really participating. And I get it. People get caught up in their lives. I get it. So what happened was I become disinterested in like doing it anymore because I'm not really getting interest from people. And so, one of the things also, like I signed up for this, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And I'm fine with it because most of it has been wonderful experience. I mean, like, look at the people I've gotten to meet through this, like Brian Canada. I mean, like WPM guys. I mean, like, I don't think I would ever get to meet these guys like Renee and talk to GM Ray Flores. Like, if I wasn't doing this, I really don't think so. Like, because I don't think there would have been a reason to or a connection, right? So the people I've met, just wonderful, wonderful people on here that I normally would not have met. like Guru Ramon there, and and everybody else that's here watching. You know what I mean? Just wonderful, wonderful people, right? But there also has been some sadness, to be quite honest, in that when you do make that mistake and they're on you, you know what I mean? Like, and it's very easy to remember what somebody does bad as opposed to what they did good. They'll attach themselves on that. You know what I mean? They'll remember that, but they won't remember whatever you did. Like, and when I'm meaning, I'm not gonna say the names or that because that's not what this is about. But like, I've interviewed some people, and man, a couple of them like threw me under the bus. Like, you know what I mean? And yeah, it stings. It stings, right? But what they keep going and kind of there. I like that happened like last year when I took that month off. It's like, yeah, it stung. Like, but I always keep looking to like the majority truly appreciate what I do. They're thankful. They're grateful. And that's what I used for the continuous motivation because it's easy. While it's easy for folks to put the glue for that one thing you did, individually, it's also easy to perseverate on that and forget like what you've done. You know what I mean? So I definitely do that. I just have to ask myself a question. Oh, we got Darren here. Darren's here. Hey, Darren. So Jason Smith. Hi, do you know anyone in the Philadelphia, New Jersey, or Delaware that teaches hedge weapons? Yes, Jason, if you send me a message and I can give you some names. And I tell you, here's a great guy right here. GM Carlito. I mean, was Angels Cabales' original student. Just yeah, wonderful guy. Wonderful guy. Yeah, so there it is. So I know I kind of went off script a bit and digressed, but it's all kind of intertwined,
Sure. So what are your plans of moving forward with the discussion group after this?
I know the $1 million question, Dean, what are you gonna do? So there are some people that I generally want to continue interviewing. I have a few more I'm now nowhere's going to do the pace I was doing. Right. But I generally do like it still. I really do. And like Renee, who's concerned about my blinds, is supposed to get back to me on Beat the Crap Out of Cancer Worldwide, and he hasn't. But there's like I wanted like another one with Brian Canada. I mean Renee, Coach Danny Terrell. Like he just went around the states in his RV, and he would stop at schools and see if he could train there. And some were accepting, and some were not. So I want to get him on that whole experience. I'm gonna get Maya back on. She came out with another book. I mean, so there's some folks I do want to bring back on. So now, does that mean I'm gonna go to 600? I'm not saying that. It just means that I know there's probably a good another 10 or so that I would like to do for sure. As far as the group, and Tim Hartman. And I think you also said the same thing as Tim. And he goes, because I was thinking, yeah, maybe I'll just shut everything down when I get done. He goes, Tim goes, don't do that. He goes, you got a name. He goes, you got a brand. He goes, don't do that. He goes, even if you just lower yourself or back down, but don't shut down. So I mean, the groups, folks seem to like the group because they can go in there, share their stuff without being attacked and put their stuff in there. So the group I would keep. The big thing is going to be, what do I do with the interviews when I'm not doing anymore? That's going to be the big question. Like, do I put them on a website? Where they're all kept. God forbid if something in YouTube or whatever happens. I don't. So
yeah, we've had some discussions about that, but we got a lot more to do to make sure that your work stays preserved forever. Yeah. Because, when you leave it up on Facebook or YouTube or something like that, with a click of a button, all of that can go away. And so that's not a very secure feeling to have all your eggs in in an unstable basket, so to
No.
speak. So, but I think that's a project that we can work on together to make sure that you have that security, that those things are there, that you have control over your own, your own product there, so to speak.
Mm, yeah, for
So,
sure. I'm definitely gonna have to do something, and I probably got to start doing that something, even before shut down. Like people have asked, well, have you considered iTunes or there? And it's not that I haven't considered, like, people ask, hey, when I'm driving, I would love to listen to it. Do you offer, that? And it's not that I'm adverse to that, but here's what's going on. Like why I enjoy this. I mean, the last 5 years, man, this is like taking a lot of my personal life. I mean, I chose to do it. I'm not complaining about it, but it's been like a lot of time that I've given that's been taken away from other facets of my life. And WPM is really growing. I'm turning 60 this next year. Like I want to get some more really good training in before maybe one day I wake up and whatever happens, right? Um, so my students, like that my student base is growing. So I need to be there for and be dedicated and not, you know, half out of it because I'm doing 3 interviews a week or whatever, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so I got, but I can tell you, I'm the happiest I've been doing this fifth year is because in other words, I used to take it really serious where I think it was a detriment to sometimes my happiness in the early years of FMA discussion because I was so concerned what others felt, or you know what I mean. Like I was concerned I was doing a good job interviewing. I was concerned that are people listening. I was concerned am I being the best version of myself. I was concerned about what people are saying. I mean, I was really engrossed by concerns. This has been the best year. Like I'm not concerned. Like I'm just not. It's not now. It's not that I don't care. It's not that like I don't want to hear people's concerns or I would blow them off. If anybody knows me by now, I'm not that type of person. But what it does mean is if you have an issue with something I did in a past interview, like I don't care. Because the people that I found that complain are the ones who do nothing for this damn community. Nothing. You know what I mean? Nothing. But they're the first ones that were there. So that took like 3 years to like reach that plateau where like I don't care. But why I say I don't care, I do. I still do care about the quality. I still do care about how the group goes. I do care about the community, right? But I don't care as much as what people think or what they're not happy with or what they might think that, well, you showed this to this guy, but you did this. And, well, maybe because he does more than you do in the community than you do. You know what I mean?
Oh, I think it's not that you don't care. I think that you're not going to become emotionally invested in negativity.
Yeah, there you go. Or yeah, because I think that's better put because I do care about the overall community and the folks overall and that. But yeah, much to your point though, like I don't have it. Nothing's staying on me like glue. You know what I mean? The Teflon.
So here's a question because it's my last one. What question do you wish that I had asked that I have not asked?
Ooh. The word, the overall, it's not that you have it because we kind of touched upon it indirectly through other questions. Not so much the future FMA, but interaction, overall interaction. Like what really upsets me about the passive aggressiveness, and I'm going to speak on this in like really great detail, meaning that because you interviewed somebody, and it just happens to me. Like matter of fact, it just happened over weekend. It happens to me I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. Because I interviewed somebody maybe more than once, there's automatically, okay, well, he's affiliated over there. You know what I mean? And then you stop seeing them liking your stuff, or they don't include you in an event. You know what I mean? Like I'm just, this stuff really happens. Like grown men. I'm not making this up. And so there's a lot of passive aggressiveness in this community. I'm not saying other martial arts don't have it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying FMA is the worst, but we're talking about FMA here. So yeah, like, and it used to bother me, but now I'm just like, well, that's too bad. I'm sorry he feels that way, and I'm sorry he's acting that way, but I can't really do anything about it. You know what I mean? But it bothers me not so much from personal, but from it's not going to make us grow. It's not going to make us work together. Like for instance, you have people in Connecticut. Like I'm going to be honest, man, and this is going to go over bad, and some people are going to get upset. I'm saying this. Connecticut sucks, man. There's no people working together in Connecticut. It's like the support, it's not good. It sucks, and there could be stuff that could really happen in Connecticut in there. And I'm going to make an attempt this summer and doing something, and so people can, nobody can say that I didn't try and I'm just shooting my mouth out, because I back up what I say. But status quo, it's god awful, and it's too bad, because it doesn't have to be that way. Like if you look at California, the way they do some of the stuff, you look in Florida, the way they do some of the stuff, it doesn't have to be this way. But you have, like, they just, like, to the point, like, well, how come you're over there, like training with Dean? This is feedback I've gotten, like, sometimes, and it's, or, they won't support, like, there's a couple people in Connecticut that never post anything about my FMA Discussion channel. No, and them, never, but I've had them on the show, it's not, but like my father told me years ago, best advice my father says, because my father was a very generous, giving person, for compassion, for charities, and I guess where I got it from. He says, when you do something for somebody, do it because you want to do it. Don't do it because you're expecting something back. And I have to revisit that, because it's so easy to think, well, hey, God, man, I am on a show. He's going to know. You know what I mean? So that I just wish there'd be less passive aggressiveness and just stop it. And if I participate indirectly, call me out, and so I can change if I'd done it.
Well, I think it's one of the great ironies of martial arts that people train so that they can become more secure. And yet there's still so many truly insecure people, even people that have trained for many, many years. They still have these insecurities, so to speak, and the passive aggressiveness comes across that way. And I have to look at that and say, well, I don't know how skilled you are, but it doesn't seem like it's helped you as a human being. And so it's an irony.
I know it's tough, man. It's really tough, because here's the thing too. There are a lot of side dishes that have come with this episode. That have come with this channel and this ongoing interviews that I didn't ask for. And it's like, like you interview somebody and you get along with them, but there's a faction over there that they just can't. And then all of a sudden you're looped into like. And then you're caught in the middle. I can't tell you times I've been caught in the middle with stuff. It happened in Modern Nice. KI was, but it's like, but they forget, like, well, who has gotten you more practitioners by me, like doing, like having you, like, and again, I don't want anything from it, but I know for a fact I put money in people's pocket. I know for a fact they go gotten students after having on interviews, hosting their seminars, putting, and that's fine. That's great. That was the objective all along in there, So, but when you have some of these same people, or few, that now put you over there because you interviewed somebody or you get along with somebody, and now they can't, It's, that's like there was a Dog Brother incident, unfortunately, too, which, that stuff, it
seems to be the nature of the beast. But on a positive note, tell me what's something that you think is like the best thing about doing this, between your training, what you're getting out of it, the people that you meet, and the podcast and everything? I mean, what's the best part of this for you?
The best part was the people I met. Absolutely. Like there's some really great people, man, that I would never got, like, like Renee. I mean, he's a little, just kidding. Like Brian Canada, Renee, like guys I've actually got to meet in person. Like it started online. There was dialogue. They were on an interview that led to something else, and then we finally got to meet. Um, like my instructors. I mean, like, yourself. Like I met you through here. You were selling a Bob. Like I mean, like Burton, and then through you, David. I'm not sure if I should thank you. That's still up in the air. Coach Danny Terrell. Like I met him. Like he was on the RV thing there. He was passing through. We met. Just great folks that. Yeah, like I mean, like I don't think I would have met them, like if it had not been through this. Like I would have kept training. My training would not be as good as it is today, or I wouldn't be as well rounded or dialed or refined. I'm sure that's the case for sure. But really, like meeting the people, like I met some great people in Canada when Renee brought me up there. Met some great people in Georgia when my student brought me down there, Brian being one of them. Went out to California, met Steve Grody, and that would never happen if it wasn't through this. I mean, I wouldn't have Eric O'Brien like as a student if it wasn't for this, who hopefully you'll meet and should be training with you as well. But yeah, the people. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to concur with that. It's the people that I've met all over the world, and the brotherhood and friendships that I've made, and to me that's some of the most enriching aspect of what it is that we do.
Absolutely.
And and I know that, in that regard, when you look at that, your podcast is the center of that community for people to meet each other, not just you going out to meet, but for them to meet each other and to be able to have that conversation, and like that guy's post. And I heard what he said, and I'm sure that there are many, many relationships in the FMA community that are now strong, and people are enjoying those relationships because they met on your podcast. And so you've achieved so much more than I think that you even realize. And again, I think that's true, that perspective is going to show you someday just what an incredible job that you've done. And I know the people that I have talked to have told me how much they appreciate what you've done and how grateful they feel to be able to visit the group, to read the posts, to interact with others and so forth. And it's just been a wonderful thing that you've done. And you've just done a great job at this, and 500 of them is amazing. But it's you as an individual that you've carried the ball, as Burton said. You've carried the ball, and it's been a long run. You've been doing it great. I know that people are going to look forward to more of it. But really, my hat is off to you, because I remember when you started doing this, and as you moved along, and I've been watching, and you're a great interviewer, Dean, and you've done an incredible job.
Well, again, coming from you, any compliment coming from you is I hold to my heart. I mean, like, but and the big thing is with you. I mean, you're the first one. Hey, like, like, all right, I guess I'll do it. Like, you could just say whatever, but because I basically got my training wheels with you, Bong Avenir, you again, Burton. You know what I mean? Like, and yeah, so yeah, big thanks to you guys, because I don't, if I couldn't get you guys to do it, I'm not sure where this would have gone, right? So yeah, but oh, do you got the question? Who that I would like to interview, but for one reason or another didn't?
That's the very last question. Lastly, is there anyone you have not interviewed that you would like to have on your show, and why?
Is that it? Are we at the last one?
Yeah, okay. That's the last one.
Okay. Yeah, there's three. You know what I mean? And like people say, well, how come Leo Gaye is not on that list? Well, I'm not going to go into detail, so we'll just leave that. But but the three are, I really wish David Gould would have came on for a number of reasons. I think people, I mean, it. I mean, that guy is unlike any other guy I've been in front of, and you as well. I mean, you know, there, I tell people like about night guys, man. David Gould, Steve Road is cognitive. I mean, but David he's just a different animal, man. And you know that just as well as I do. He is just, yeah, there's stuff that has come from him that I did not see. And whack. And there were a couple shots that came from you. I didn't see the check mark. Boom. But when I thought my tooth was molar was over my right side. But I really wish he would have came on because I think folks would have really appreciated his insight to Lameko, Edgar. Even Roger admitted that David is like the curriculum guy. He's got the whole curriculum. And I think people really could benefit from hearing from him, not just from a perspective attribute development, but really what Edgar was about and that. So it's just too bad. But yeah, so David Gould for sure. Second, Style Law. So Style Law is probably, if I'm not mistaken, the only teacher in the U.S. that teaches the true moral arts. I met him at the Blade Show. We got there, and just one of the most fascinating guys to talk to. Definitely from Mindanao, teaches it, the whole customs, garb, I mean, everything. Not that he was like that day, but just, it was so fascinating listening to him just go on. And unfortunately, he couldn't come on because of politics and all that, but he would have been just fascinating to hear from. Nino Rapong, the guy I mentioned at one of my top episodes, is a student. But Style Law is one of those guys that would have been really fascinating to hear from a moral art perspective. Last but not least, I'm kind of disappointed in this one. She's kind of coined the matriarch of FMA, and not that I'm saying she's not. No, so I don't want anybody getting that misconstrued, so we don't open that can of worms. It's what she's coined, not by me. Somebody else coined her that. Is Peachy. She said she was going to come on, then she had a change of heart. And I don't, I have some ideas and I've heard some things why she didn't come on, but I just really think for the women in FMA, I think it would have been really good for her to come on for them. You know what I mean? To be, to there. And it's easy for me to say she should have came on, put that stuff aside, come on. Everybody knows I stay away from politics. I make it a pleasant experience for the guests to come on. I never had a guest walk off. I never had a guest disgruntled, never put them on a spot, never embarrassed a guest, right? Always been really cordial, polite, and try to make it the most pleasant experience for them. And I would have done the same for her. So kind of, yeah, with her, I just think, again, for the women, it would have been good.
Well, that's the end of the questions that I had.
That is kind of perfect timing, man. Yeah, her style. I know. God, it's. I know, Tim. I just, yeah. I just wish he would have came on. There's another incredible guy, man. Tim, about the history of Spanish influence, FMA, and all that. Fascinating guy. With Elric in there, but yeah. So we kind of hit it we just under the 10 minutes under the 2-hour mark. Well, this has been, again, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I'm sure on a Sunday night, there's other things you could have done besides.
No, I feel really honored that you let me do this, because it was your 500th episode. You had me on first. I think it's only right that we get to interview you and, flip the script, so to speak, and hear more about you and what's important and all of this. And I felt really honored and privileged to be able to do it. And thank you for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh. It's, having let's think about this. Having one of your instructors, your mentors and all that interview you, it's this new stud comes in the NBA, and then Michael Jordan's interviewing him. You know what I mean? It's like, so this is I couldn't I couldn't think of a better person. I mean, you were the first interview, and having you do it. So, and then, okay, you check this out, and there'll be more comments coming in because I haven't commented yet on here. We're up to 175 comments. You are probably going to break the record for
Wow.
yeah. So 175 is a lot of comments. We got 40 likes already, and that will of course will grow a bit too. So I think a home run. So
Yeah, it was really, and seeing all the names of the people that are up there, seeing Brian Canada and Paula Rubio and John
yeah,
Kupis and Eric O'Brien. I mean, there's so many guys that I know that are on there. And hey, hello to all of you guys. And,
yeah.
thank you for watching the episode.
So I think this is appropriate time for a big shout out, Amok. So, yeah. I think the record will be broken, Paulo. Yeah, I think so. Because I haven't thanked people yet, put in there. So I think in an hour or so, I'm speculating we'll probably get up to that number. Yeah. But this has been great again, man. This was and I was telling folks, man, your questions were so dialed in. Like, they were perfect. Couldn't ask for better questions and better hosts. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you liked them. So, you're
Yeah.
the master interviewer. I had to learn from watching you.
Well, man, I'll take it because, geez, But the comments reflect. I mean, reflect themselves as one of the smartest people. Yeah, no argument there, Paulo. As far as
Paulo,
intelligence.
you're too kind.
How long has he been running amok? Renee. Oh, geez, there's two of the smartest.
I started this in '92 when I came back from Russia.
Yeah, and you were right before SAOC. How long? Yeah. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, no, thank you, Brian. Brian, we'll be in touch for coming on. Danny Terrell, Coach Danny, if you're still watching, I definitely would like to get you on in your regarding your RV. Two of the smartest in the biz. Rich, that is very kind of you. For you to put me in along with Tom Sotis in that regard, man. That's those are big shoes, man.
Thank you for those kind words, gentlemen. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. But again, so we'll be in touch. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm overwhelmed and flattered. Yeah.
Well, happy 500th.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, then. You take care, brother.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that concludes 500. Would I've ever even thought about 500 in late October 2019? An emphatic no. I can guarantee you that. So, who is next? I know everybody thinking, well, 500, he's leaving, he's gone, it's over, right? But as I said in the interview, there are like 10 more interviews I want to do. Some are theme based, and I kind of already mentioned the names. But of course, if you've got some people that you like to hear from that I have not thought of, please, as always, message me, and I will definitely write their names down and interview them. Okay. Those they're such a staple now. To replace them now, I think would be a disservice overall to FMA discussion. And like I was saying, Renee was supposed to do the GoFundMe, and I'm not sure if he kept the money or not on that. So, Renee, anything you'd like to say to that? All right, guys. Hey, well, thank you to those who really watched, and that really means a lot to me that you guys would, on a Sunday night and just sit here and watch it and comment. Believe it or not, I can't even watch my own interviews. So the fact that you guys stuck around for this duration, which is close to coming up to almost 2 hours, I really, really Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I don't take anything for granted like that. So yeah. But till next time, I thought my sillies. Yeah, that'd be funny. Get you and Renee, you and Eric on the show. Jesus, I'll be glad for punishment then. All right, folks. Let's smash his comment record for Tom again. Big thanks to Tom, man, for doing this. Yeah, it was very, very kind of Leo. All right. Yeah, thank you, Leo. All right, Mark. Hey. All right, guys. Well, I have a meeting to go to, a WPM meeting, and but again, thank all of you, and hopefully I'll talk to you guys sooner than later. Okay, thanks.